All right, guys, we're back with another trade recap. And as we can see, I'm down again today, $47. So that puts me down on the week about $350, which, as you can see on the thumbnail of this video, that represents 1.5% of my account. So I'm down 1.5% this week on my account. So, putting it into that perspective, not that bad. But I think I really need to work on understanding the market sentiment and adjusting expectations and adjusting my strategy for the type of market that we're in. The overall market has been selling off. It's Friday. There were a lot of good moves this week. And the start of this morning was slow, but I was still trying to hammer it and not really taking a step back and being like, all right, it's slow. Let's not just start taking trades and hoping that things go up, which that's kind of what I did to an extent. But yeah, so we're going to get into this video. And again, please subscribe and please like the video. All right, so ending the day down $47. My big loser was on AAOI. I had a decent winning trade on DRUG. But yeah, let's just get into the trades here. All right, so my first trade was a pre-market trade on AAOI. It had come into this support level at the 200 moving average and lower band of VWAP, and I decided to get in and looking for that squeeze up to VWAP. So basically, it doesn't hold up, and we can see it coming down there. It's coming down even more, and I'm about to sell it if it breaks below $3. And right there, we got the breakdown through 3, and I sold it. I lost 22 bucks. I had gotten in with 200 shares at around 310, and I sold it for the break below 3, so I lost $22. Man, that's annoying. Probably shouldn't have taken that trade. I'm thinking that if I were to take this trade, I should have gotten in for the first test of this support level, and then seeing as it doesn't hold up, then you sell it. I got in a little bit late, so that wound up costing me. All right, so first trade is a loser. All right, let's see what happens next. All right, so my next trade is also really not a good trade. KNW. So KNW pulls back off the highs, and it came into this support level, which is around 314. And I'm getting in at 325 with 150 shares. This is an example of bad trading, which has been the theme this week. I've just been trading so bad this week. And this is another example of bad trading. So I should have gotten the dip down into the level here and then sold it up into the resistance at 325. And then if it clearly broke that level, then I can re-enter. But I missed the dip entry, and I'm getting in at the top of the range where I should be selling. And it's just, I'm getting bad positions because what's likely to happen is it's going to continue to bounce in between this range until it either breaks up or breaks down. So if I'm buying at the top of the range, that's not a good place to buy. I need to be buying at the bottom of the range at support, selling towards the top of the range, and then buying back if it breaks. But instead here, I bought at the top of the range, expecting it to break and squeeze. So that is bad trading. And this is what happens with me is I just get into these losing streaks where I'm taking bad trades, I'm missing profit, and I'm oversizing and I'm revenge trading. And before I know it, I have a decent sized losing day. And so, man, it's just, I really got to get good at trading well. That's it. But yeah, so this stock winds up cracking down. It's not breaking, and it's coming down again and bouncing off that level, right? It's trading within that range. And then here we see it coming down into support, and I just go ahead and cut it. I mean, God, I'm trading the exact opposite as I should be. I'm buying it up here, I'm selling it down here, when I need to be buying it down here and selling it up here. So I lost another $12 on that. And then we see the break through that level, and we came down and touched 3, which that could have been a nice dip buy. Okay, so here we go. So I put an order out to buy at 287 because I've got this mapped out support line here, and I'm looking for it to crack down to that level and then make a bounce up, maybe back up to 310. So it pulls down all the way to, let's see, 292, and it reverses off of that level. I'm like, man, that's annoying. This is just one of those situations that causes me to start feeling a type of way. So let's see what happens. So it's kind of backing off that level, but then it squeezes up even more up to 315. So it went from 292 up to 315. That's a decent move. I still have my order out there because I'm thinking that it's going to come down to that level. But instead, I took this entry up here. Again, it's like probably a really bad entry, but it was breaking the high of the previous candle. So I decided to jump in because I'm like, oh, we might get that big squeeze. But it's like, this is where the idea of market sentiment comes in. Is this a market where I should be expecting that big squeeze? And the answer is probably no. I shouldn't be expecting that big squeeze. I should be expecting it to sell off and, fake outs and sell offs and so on. So I got in with 150 shares at 313, and we're backing off, and we can see that we're holding up at $3 a share, and I'm just waiting for it to maybe squeeze up. And so I just go ahead and cut it right there, and I lost a few more bucks on that trade. So now I'm down 16 in total on the stock. Okay, so fast forward, now we're getting that pullback into this area, and I have my order out again at 287, and there we go. It comes down, it fills me, and I wind up selling it because it's kind of coming down some more, and I'm getting worried that it's just going to crack below it. But then by this next candle, as soon as we see this green come back in, I get back in with 150 shares again at 287. And now I'm looking for this thing to ramp up to 310. So it's kind of popping up a little bit. Right there, I'm up about 15 bucks on the trade. We're getting a nice push up, but we're coming into the $3 mark, which, man, I probably should have taken profit into that level maybe. I forget what exactly it does at this point, but let's see. So we kind of backed off that $3 mark. Now we're back to 291. And then right there, we start to crack below my entry, and I decide to sell. And now I'm down $20 altogether on the stock. So that's annoying. I guess I should have sold into that resistance at $3 and not expected that break of it, right? Because that's the market sentiment, right? Is we get these types of smaller opportunities. And, this is still the first 15 minutes of the day. And the first 15 minutes of the day today, there was a lot of weakness. There was a lot of selling. There weren't really any big squeezes to the upside. All right, so my next trade, it was on CLEU. So CLEU, we can see that it's come down into this support line. And I can see that there's, right here at 115, we can see that there's a lot of buyers. On the level 2, we can see 629 versus 238. Okay, so at this particular price, there appears to be a lot more buyers than sellers. So I decide to get in. And it happened so fast because we broke that level. I'm in with 300 shares at 115. And then it just winds up breaking below that, and I sell it real quick, and I lose $1. Well, let's see what happens. So right there, we can see that we got this tap of this support level right here at 113. And maybe I could have tried again. I could have taken another stab at that price. So it looks like we're holding up, and fast forwarding, we go from 113 to 118. That's a decent move for this price range. Right? 115 or 113 to 118. I mean, that could have been some decent profit right there. Buying at this support and then selling it maybe up here. But yeah, so I'm going to go back because I took some trades during that time. So there's my trade on CLEU. And then I switch gears over to KNW. All right, so KNW. We got this dip. I bought 150 shares at 257. Because looking at the 5-minute chart, we made this big pullback into the 200 moving average and the lower band of VWAP. So I'm thinking, all right, now we might get that ramp up back up to like 280 or something. So as we can see, I'm up about $12 right here. And I'm just looking for it to make a bigger squeeze, which again is probably not the smartest thing to be doing. But I think I go ahead and sell it soon. Yeah, so right there, I sold it, and I went from being down 20 on it to being down 9. So I cut that loss in half. And I couldn't get green at all today. I was red for the whole morning, starting from my first trade. So then I switch over to AAOI, which, I don't know about this one. This trade I think was dumb. This is the stock that I took my first trade on, and I lost 22 bucks on it. So it looks like we're getting this break up over 3, and then it pulled back, and I decided to get in with 200 shares at $3. And now I'm expecting this thing to maybe ramp up into the high of day, which is at about 313, I think. But we backed off that level pretty hard, and I went ahead and cut it. And now I'm down 30, so I lost about 10 bucks on that trade. And it continues to pull back a little bit more. But then I switch back over to KNW. We got this big drop off here, and I got in with 300 shares at 232, which, I'm oversizing again, because if this thing drops 10 cents, that's $30, which that's more than my max loss allows for. I'm only risking $20 per trade, but in a situation like this, I'm risking $30 per trade. But I'm looking for this thing to make a squeeze up. I'm up 13 right here, and I go ahead and cut it, and now I'm up $4 on that stock. Okay, cool. I made back some money on that. I think I was down, see, how much was I down? I was down about 10 bucks on that stock, and then I was up 4. So I made about, $14 to $15 on that trade. All right, so my losses are getting smaller. At one point in the morning, I got myself to being down only -2, which that was the best that I was at this morning, was -2. So let's see what else happens. All right, so going back to CLEU, we can see that it made this nice move up from this support level up to 120. And, I'm kind of feeling my emotions kind of flare up because, this is profit that I missed out on, and I'm about to take a big position on this. So it looks like we're about to get the break of 120. And if we get the break of 120, I was going to buy, right? Because we have this triple top here at 120. And then we can see that it came down and dipped and touched this line. And now we're making a move back up. And I'm going to press play on this so we can see what happens. So we're going to see these numbers start to disappear and get smaller. And then we're going to see the break, and then we're going to see where I pressed buy. So, okay, the numbers, okay, and then it broke. I'm going to pause it. It broke. It happened so fast, but that by the time I pressed buy, I'm getting filled a couple cents higher than I wanted to. I'm getting filled at 122, and I'm in with 500 shares. But, 500 shares on this stock isn't really that much because the range is really small. But I'm a little bit irritated that I'm just not making any money on these stocks, and I'm getting bad fills. I'm not taking the best entries. It's just I'm not doing well. And so we get a pullback off of that level, and I add another 500 shares. So now I'm in with 1,000 shares at 121. And I'm looking for this thing to come up, just to come up a little bit. And right there, we can see it's pulling back even more. And now I'm down $22 on this trade, and I go ahead and cut it, and I ended down on that stock $22. It's just the morning's not going my way at all, and it sucks. But I'm trading like absolute shit. Like, I'm not trading well at all. So I see it holding up at this level, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get back in. I'll get back in with 1,000 shares again at 120, and maybe we'll get that push up to 124, 125, 126, maybe all the way up to 129, which if we got up to 129, that would have been a $100 winner, but man, it's just not working out. So we start to back off, and I'm about to sell it. So we can see that I'm up $23 right here, which is only a couple cents a share because I have 1,000 shares. But I'm about to press sell, because I see it turning red. And I'm like, crap, this thing's coming down. So I go ahead and sell it. Now I'm down 15 on the stock. So I made some back on that trade. And then as we can see coming up here, it makes that sell off right there. And it comes down into the 116 level. And as we can see, I've got my hand hovered over the buy button at 116. And I'm about to press buy, I'm pretty sure. So I get in again with another 1,000 shares at 116. And now I'm looking for this thing to squeeze back up into these levels again and test these levels. So what do I do here? So it drops off even more down to 114, but I'm still holding because, the range isn't that big. So my risk is kind of mitigated that way. So we can see that this dip down to 114 got bought up, and now we're back up to 117. And I'm like, all right, maybe this thing is going to make that squeeze back up. And we're kind of getting a push right there. And I go ahead and sell it. And I made back some of my losses again. Now I'm only down 8. In total, I was down 22, but now I'm only down 8. So I've made back some of my losses on that. And then my next trade was on DRUG. So DRUG had started making this move up. And, DRUG is a former runner. So it's, it's one of those stocks that people will just have on watch to see if it does something. So it was hitting my scanner, and I pull it up, and I'm like, all right, let's see what I can do here. I'm thinking that there's a lot of traders that are going to be jumping on this because the morning's been crappy. So let's see here. I'm about to take a trade on this for a dip down into this level here. So right there, I got in with 500 shares at 154, and I'm going to stop out if it breaks below 150. So I'm in at 154. I'm thinking that this thing has momentum right now, and people are interested in it. People are hoping that maybe this will be the stock that the bulls can make money on, that the long traders can make money on. So I bought 500 shares at 154. And right here, I'm selling it. I'm up about $30 when I'm about to sell it, but really, man, I should have waited till it came up into the high of day. And, this is what's annoying is that, I miss out on this profit because I sell it, I lock up 25, and then it continues to squeeze up all the way up into high of day. And we're about to get the break of high of day, and I go ahead and I buy back in with 500 shares, and then I sell it real quick, and I locked up another $6, and I think that was it for that stock. And then I switched gears over to AAOI. So as we can see, I'm down 30 in total on this stock. And as we can see on the 5-minute here, it made this ramp up, this big red to green move. I mean, it's not that big. It went from like 287 all the way up to 305. But this is the type of thing that I'm talking about where I need to be getting the better entries. Like the better entries were at the lows. Because if I switch back to the 1 minute, I mean, we can see this clear level of support in price. I should be buying it down here. and then getting the move to the upside. But instead, I'm getting in for the break of VWAP with 300 shares at 307. And this is just not a good entry. There's nothing good about this entry. Like, the only thing that I was thinking was, okay, I'm going to get in, it's going to pop up. And that's not good. Like, that's not a good way to be trading. Like, I need to be very specific and consistent about the types of entries that I'm taking. Taking entries at support, taking good dip entries, taking breakout entries, but also recognizing what makes a good dip entry, what makes a bad dip entry, what makes a good breakout entry, what makes a bad breakout entry. And then I need to be taking profit. I need to be cutting my losses. And so, yeah, I'm just taking bad entries right now on this thing, because then it backs off really hard. It's like, of course it's going to back off really hard. Like, that was a terrible place to get in, and it's just pulling back even more. And I'm about to cut this thing, and I'm like, oh, you did it again. So yeah, I'm down 75 on this stock here. And here's the frustrating thing is, you know, I sell it and then it starts to turn back around. But when you think about it, you know, it didn't break below these lows here. It's kind of, you know, holding up at the 9 moving average. So, man, I just didn't trade it well, because let's see what happens. It turns around and then boom, it just really starts to rip up. So this is interesting right here. So we're coming up into the high of day. So we see this candle back here is the high of day. I believe it's at 312 maybe. This stock, or this candle, came up into 310 and backed off, you know, which is essentially near the high of day. And then this candle came up into 310 again, and now we could be breaking up through it, but then we also have to break up through the 200 moving average right here, which is 313. So this is an example of a breakout trade, right? So if it breaks above the high of day, and if it breaks above the 200 moving average, then that could be a good trade to get into. So fast forwarding here. So right here, we see that it came up and it tapped it and it rejected off of that level, you know, because people are taking profit. They're not sure if it's going to break, right? You know, that's what the smart money is doing. And that's why these stocks move the way that they do, because it's the smart people with the big money that are basically pushing around price, right? And then guys like me, you know, take a bunch of us who are also doing the same thing. You know, price is going to move in these consistent ways, which if you can understand these things about price movement, then you can potentially capitalize on it. You know, that's what I'm having a hard time doing right now is getting my performance on point. All right, so let's see what it does here. So it backs off, comes down into the $3 range, and now we're coming up and we're testing it again, right? So we got to pull back. We held up around $3 a share, right? A very natural area of support and resistance. And now we're coming back up, and now we might actually be getting the break. I'm going to press play on this right here. So it's looking like it might break it. As soon as we hit 314, that would be the place to be buying, is at 314. So we're still not breaking it. Okay, boom. Okay, so there's the break. There's the break. And it shoots up, right? Because there's a lot of buying that's happening at that price. And, you know, the way that the morning was going, the first 30 minutes of the day, the bears had control of price, meaning there was more selling than buying. And when that happens, okay, so now we're in the next part of the morning. Now maybe the bulls will start to take control and the bears are going to step out of the way because they've already made their money. Now the bulls are coming in to make their money, right? So fast forwarding here, you know, so this would have been a good dip trade right here at 315, right? In this range, because now what's happening is this previous resistance level right, the previous level that price couldn't break over is now becoming support. So now it's going to hold at that level, right? So it's not breaking it, and then it breaks it, and now it's going to be bouncing off of it and going higher. So this could have been a good dip entry, right? So you get the break up, you sell it up at 325 because the $0.25 is another natural area of support and resistance. So you could have been buying this dip here. So fast forwarding. Okay, so right here, we've got this double top, right? So this is another thing that I look for is the double tops, right? So we have this double top here at 325. Now, if you didn't get this dip entry, now you could be looking at this for a potential breakout entry, right? Just like what we saw down here. When it breaks that area of resistance, we might see a big squeeze up. So let's see what it does. It's coming up into that level. And as we can see here on the level 2, we have a lot of sellers here, right? That's the resistance, right? This is what the resistance looks like on the level 2, because there's a lot of people that are selling it at that price. But let's press play and see what happens. It's dwindling down, and now we're about to break it. All right, so we didn't quite get the break quite yet, but there was a lot of buying. Okay, so now we're testing it again. Let's see if we can get all the way down to 3, 2, 1, break. 2, 1, there's the break, okay? So there's the break. Now we're over 325. Now we're looking for this thing to really start to squeeze up. So let's fast forward here. So it's still holding up, and we're getting that bigger push. And pulling up the chart here, let's pull up the chart. This is what we were just looking at. It squeezed all the way up to 335, kind of backed off, and just did a lot of chop, right? But it wound up making its way all the way up to 350. If we look at the 5-minute, this is what the chart looked like. It held its lows up in this area. There was a lot of indecision. We didn't know if we were going to break to the upside or just come back down. We wound up breaking to the upside, and we got this decent, this really good move from, the break of the high of day all the way up to 350, right? So from 312 up to 350. And so, it's my goal to be a great trader and to be able to trade these moves flawlessly. But today was another day where I just couldn't make it happen. And so those are the trades. I'm ending the day down $47. This week I'm down 1.5% in my account overall, which, thinking about it like that, is not bad. I mean, yeah, just the market that we're in right now is difficult, right? So you have to be more aware of the downside and adjust your expectations for how big of a move you're to expect. But the style of trading is always going to remain the same, where you're buying on the dips, you're buying at support, you're selling into resistance, you're buying back over resistance, and you're respecting your max loss per trade. And so those things never change. And I need to get really good at doing that, at making sure that I'm getting my entries as close as I can to support, and that I am taking profit when I need to and where I need to. And I'm being mindful of the way that the morning is playing out, right? So the market sentiment. All right, so I sit down, I'm like, okay, what's this week looked like? There's been some good moves to the upside, but it's also been really tricky and choppy. I mean, dude, just sitting here trying to wrap my head around it, it's just difficult. But man, I'm on a losing streak, and I want to get out of this losing streak. I need to come into next week just taking profit and taking good trades. All right, yeah, so that's the video. Again, please subscribe, please leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.